All right, everyone, welcome. Now that we're recording, we'll jump into it. So today, again, we're talking about perfecting your persuasive pitch. My name is Martin McGovern. I am a career coach and founder of careertherapy.com. I really enjoy helping people navigate the emotional and promotional sides of the job search. I started my career out in the marketing and advertising world. So helping credit card companies and Fortune 500 businesses use all of this cognitive behavioral psychology to get your money. And as I made the transition into the world of education, and I saw that there was an opportunity to teach individuals how to use all those same tactics to get money right back from these companies. So that's what we're going to talk about today. How do you reverse engineer the marketing that companies use to convince you that they're an amazing company to work for? How do you use that to convince them that you're the right hire, right? I've worked with tons of different schools and boot camps over the years, thousands of students from around the world. So whatever questions you have as we go through this presentation, throw them at me. I'm happy to go on tangents and really dig into the areas that you are most interested in. So feel free to unmute or hit me comments in the chat, and we'll keep things moving forward. All right. Okay, so the way that this presentation is broken down is in three parts. The first one is changing your perspective and putting them first, putting the hiring manager or the company at the center of your job search and your pitch, and then backing out into your value add. The next thing is that value add. We'll share your unique stories, and then finally we'll bring it all together into your pitch. So them, you, and then everything together. Now, why do we start with a them first approach? Generally speaking, the job search is pretty self-focused. Has anyone noticed this in the things that you're seeing or reading, stuff that's popping up on LinkedIn? Find your passion, find your purpose, create an amazing personal brand. Is anyone seeing all this stuff out there? What kinds of things are popping up in your feeds?
Like, in some of mine are just like, like pursue a great career in coding and stuff like that. Just it's around like the same stuff like that.
Yeah. And does it feel overwhelming when you see all this stuff? Yeah, what's overwhelming? Like, what are you sort of feeling when it comes to the job search? Do you feel like you have to be some sort of like, I don't know, like perfect magic person that can do every possible thing in code, or like what kind of what does it make you think when you look at this like landscape of the job that's out there?
I think I'm not nervous about like the actual interview part, but when they do like the technical questions, like you were saying, I think that's what stresses me out the most, like knowing what I should prepare with the most, I guess.
For sure. Yeah, and with the technical piece, it's interesting because we also have to sort of learn how to express our technical side in a story as well. The worst technical interview is one where someone comes in and doesn't say a word and just turns it in. You need to be able to tell that story. And that's a lot of what we're going to talk about today. It's like, what is the problem you're trying to solve? How are you solving it? And why does it matter to the place that's hiring you? So it is partially the technical and the behavioral. Even the technical is a bit behavioral. But yeah, we'll definitely be digging into all this today, because at the end of the day, this job search, although it feels like there's a spotlight on you and you have to be perfect and you have to be this like know-it-all that can magically solve every coding problem that exists, really at the end of the day, what you're doing isn't, solving every problem, but just taking problems off other people's plates, right? So when you actually get out there and you start talking to people who have the jobs you wish you had, you're going to find out that they're not savants. They're not brilliant. They're not able to just like pull everything out of thin air and be these like, what you would expect, like the Beautiful Mind movie or something like that, right? They're sitting there going, how the heck do I do this? And then going to Google and figuring it out over the course of the day or the week or the month, right? So a lot of what we're doing here in the job search isn't trying to be perfect. A lot of what we're trying to do is build trust, is to show that we could figure it out given enough time and access to Google. So how do we actually build trust? Well, in order to build trust, we need to shift that spotlight back on the company where it belongs, because this is a transaction. This is your services, their problems, transaction, okay? It's not about you as a person or your self-worth or your identity or any of that stuff. Although a lot of things out there will push you in that direction, it really is about just trying to be the most helpful person in the room. So what are some things that you really should not say? Let's say you're in an interview or you're networking and they say, tell me about yourself. What should you not say in response to that question? What do you think the common things that people say are? Especially after graduating a boot camp.
Should you not say this is your first type of position or like your first interview for this position, or?
You're definitely on the right track. We don't want to be highlighting the lack of experience right off the bat, right? What other things?
We probably don't want to talk about how we don't feel like experts yet.
Exactly. You're all hitting it on the head. What we don't want to say is, I recently graduated and I'm excited for the opportunity to learn in this role, receive mentorship, and build my career. I hear this all the time. Now, why do we think this is not the right thing to say?
It makes it seem like this is like a stepping stone for you.
Anything else?
Because an employer literally doesn't care about any of this.
You
Seems
crushed
like
it.
you're
They literally
asking them
don't.
for something.
Well, yeah, you're asking them for something. It's stuff that they don't care about. You're highlighting that you don't have experience, right? Because what they hear is, hi, I'm inexperienced, unemployed, need you to teach me, and I'm going to cost this company a lot of money. Unfortunately, we're so focused on our insecurities and focused on our need to grow, and so worried that we're quote unquote not even, that we're breaking in, we're not in the field yet, that we hyper focus on the wrong things and completely miss the point altogether. I had someone say to me today, I just can't wait until I'm in the industry because then I'll feel like I'm not an imposter anymore. First of all, you're still going to feel like an imposter all the time throughout your career. But second, I'm like, you're already in the industry. Getting educated is the first step of being part of this industry. Everyone who's in this industry had to get educated about these topics, which means the time at which you were not part of the industry was before you knew anything about it. Once you know something about it and join a boot camp or some sort of course or begin teaching yourself, whatever, you're already in the industry. Now it's just a matter of where on the spectrum from learning how to do it to executing on it are you. So you're already in the industry. Now you're just trying to find a job with the skills that you've been building. All right. So I really want to help change your perspective from like, I'm trying to break in. I hope someone gives me a chance. This is a time for me to learn. No, you're learning in class. When you get the job, it's a time for you to execute and continue learning, because there is no time in which you will stop learning. That's one of the fun parts about this career, right? You get to keep learning and keep learning and keep learning because technology changes so rapidly. But that's also a benefit to you because it changes so rapidly that it doesn't matter when you enter the industry, everyone is learning something new all the time. So you can catch up pretty quickly. So all of this to say, don't start with your insecurities, start with how you can help. All right. And this brings us to the them first approach. We always want to be putting ourselves into their shoes, asking the question, what do they care about? And figuring out, why are they even hiring for this position, right? Has anyone actually sat down and thought about that? Why would a company hire, not you for this role, but just this role in general? Why is a company hiring for the job that you want? I want to open it up. What do you think? What's the job you're going after and why would a company hire for it?
They probably have, they know they need to get into the tech space and stay there, but the people who are currently there probably don't know a whole lot about it if it's a smaller company.
Yeah, it might be a law firm, a small law firm, and they haven't digitized anything, right? They might be very paper and pen still. They might be trying to launch a new product. They might have a bad user experience that they're trying to fix. They might, whatever it is, you know? Any other ideas of things that you might be, of reasons why the company might be looking for a developer or whatever the role is that you're going after? And this silence is the reason we're talking about this. I ask people all the time, why would a company want to hire a developer? And they go, well, because I want to learn and grow in the industry. And I'm like, so they're hiring you to teach you how to be a developer? That's the entire, they're just sitting on a pile of money looking to give people chances. That's not really how companies work at the end of the day, right? They are focused more on themselves. They're focused on their problems. They're focused on their need for growth, their need to improve the customer experience, their need to retain customers or acquire customers or improve the repurchase rates or whatever it might be. There's so many reasons why they're hiring for your role, and we need to identify those things. The other thing is I want you to move away from saying I, me, and my as much as possible. We won't eliminate it, but we're going to try and move away from it a little bit. Has anyone ever written a cover letter recently? In your cover letter, go back and look at it and count how many times you say I, me, and my. I actually had someone once give me a cover letter to review, and they managed to have every single sentence in the entire 6-paragraph cover letter start with I, me, or my. It sounds like the most selfish thing in the world, but they're just so hyper-focused on like wanting to impress that they didn't even notice. They didn't notice that they're like, hi, my name is, I want this, I've done this, give me this. They never once talked about the company's mission, the company's needs, how their skills can help the company. They just spent the whole time talking about themselves. And I'm not trying to put this person on the chopping block. I'm just saying this is what happens when we're like so close to the job search, is we forget that this heavy focus on ourselves just gives fuel to our insecurities. Because when all we're thinking about is, am I good enough? Do I have enough? Should I get more education? Should I go get another certification? Should I go study another programming language? Like, the answer is maybe to some of those things. But the real answer is, until you've actually gone out and figured out what the company wants, getting another certification that they don't need isn't going to help, right? How many people go out and just stay in school for the next 15 years and never actually get a job because they're too scared to actually make that transition? Those are the things we want to avoid. We want to get into a company solving problems as quickly as possible. And truthfully, if we spend too much time worrying about how we're coming across, I think personal branding's fine. We're going to talk about building your personal pitch and all that stuff. But if we spend all day, every day wondering if we're good enough, that's going to be really bad for our mental health. So I want to shift the focus off of, are you good enough, to, do you have enough skills to solve any problems for this company? And if the answer is yes, again, with enough time and access to Google, could you help them? Then we're ready to go. We're cooking with oil. All right. So let's shift our thinking away from ourselves onto the other people that we're going to interact with in the job search. So here's a few folks that we'll interact with: recruiters, hiring managers, CEOs, and networking contacts. Well, what do you think their incentives are for talking to us? Again, we already established that it's not to give you an opportunity. It's not to help you grow, although those are side effects of them hiring you. What is the core motivator for a recruiter? Has anyone talked to recruiters? What is their core motivator?
To improve the company or they're low staffed, or there could be, they want to grow the company.
Yeah, you're on the right track. So they're understaffed and the recruiter is trying to bring in new people. How do recruiters get paid?
Probably commission.
It's
Or
either
by-
yep, it's either salary from the company, in which case 100% they're just trying to increase staff. It's they're self-employed and they get a commission of the salary of the person that they place, or some other variety of commission-based work, right? So recruiters are incentivized by commissions. So if you think about recruiting and you're talking to a recruiter and you want them to help you get an entry-level job, you'll probably end up getting ghosted. This is what I see for most people who are trying to get into an entry-level job talking to recruiters. A lot of my bootcamp grads, complain about this all the time. And the reason for that, the reason that they struggle to get recruiters to help them is because if you look at the incentives of recruiters, they don't align with the job seekers, with entry-level job seekers. So let's say the recruiter gets paid a commission of the person that they place in a job, all right, of the person's salary. They would want to place people into more senior roles because they would get higher commissions, right? So if I place someone in a role for $50,000 and get 20%, it takes just as much effort to do that, if not more, than to place them into an $80,000 or $100,000 job with a 20% commission. As a recruiter, where is my incentive going to push me? It's going to push me to the more senior roles, right? And then when you look at how they actually are placing these people, the company is their client, not you, the job seeker. So if you spend a half hour talking to a recruiter and they get your hopes up and they make you feel really good, and then you go, well, I don't need to look for jobs anymore, this recruiter's got my back, right? And then they ghost you. Why would they do that? Well, they're probably talking to hundreds of people in order to fill one or two roles. And their client is who they care about, not the job seeker. All right, so I'm being really harsh on recruiters here, but my point being, we have to look at the incentives behind people's actions, because that will show us how we can help. So how can you help a recruiter? You can help them by making your story easier to tell, because they're going to have to go sell you to the company and they're going to want the easiest story to sell. This person worked at Google, so they've already been vetted, so they'd be great for your team. The company goes, great, boom, commission, easy peasy. That's a recruiter's favorite moment, right? But if you go to a recruiter and you're like, I have this really complicated background and I don't even know how to tell my story, can you go sell me into a company? They're going to be like, oh, this is going to take so much time and effort, right? So again, I don't want to be too down on recruiters, and I'm probably hitting them too hard right now. But the goal here is to think about incentives. How do we play to the incentives of the people that we're talking to? What do you think the hiring manager's incentive is, or what do you think they care about most?
Quality of employee and low turnover would probably be the
Quality of employee and low turnover. I love it. And the reason that they want a quality employee is because they don't want this person to be an asshole who screws up their team, right? And they don't want to bring someone on who's going to quit in 3 months, because that's going to be expensive on their budget. And they don't want to bring someone on that's going to make everyone else on the team quit, because that's going to be bad for their team and their budget, right? So they're looking for someone who fits in well with the team. So when you're talking to a hiring manager, you want to talk about, what are the skills that you have on your team right now? What are the skills what are the skill gaps you're trying to fill? What are you looking for? What attributes are you looking for in a new hire? What made the last person in this role really good at it? Things that show that you care about being a good team player and performer, right? Now, how might that differ from a CEO? What does a CEO care about?
money.
Money.
Productivity, money.
Yeah.
Productivity and money. Right. So the CEO might not care as much about turnover or team dynamics at their level because the manager is responsible for that, right? So they're more concerned about, does this person care about how their role impacts the overall business? Are they asking questions about the industry, about how our market mix is, about how our new apps that we're developing are going to impact the general landscape of the business in our industry, things like that, right? So you can ask broader industry-based questions to the CEO and have conversations about those things. Shows that you know what they care about and that you know how to have conversations at their level, right? So we can start thinking about how to change the way that we talk and interact based on who we're talking to, rather than having blinders on and just giving our like pre-written pitch to every single person, right? So you can see how we're trying to better understand our users the way that you would when designing a website, in order to actually navigate these things in the appropriate way. Now, the last one here, networking contacts. You're going to be pushed every which way to go network more, and it is the primary way to get a job. 80% of jobs are found for networking. But a lot of people are scared to do it because they think, well, why would this person want to, talk to me? I'm just wasting their time. I'm just being a burden, right? Well, why would a person want to talk to you? Why would a random person who works in the industry want to talk to someone like you? What is their incentive?
Do they get some sort of like a referral bonus?
There you go.
Maybe.
Companies pay referral bonuses to people who can refer folks into jobs. I actually, in one of the jobs that I got early in my career, the person that got me the job said, I really want to go to Hawaii, so I'm going to get you a job at my company. Do not quit before I get my payout. Otherwise, we're going to have some words. And I was like, all right, cool, whatever. Like, hey, get me a job. I'm good, right? They have their own incentives. You don't have to give people an incentive to talk to you. They have their own incentives. You don't have to justify anything. They either want to talk to you or they don't. If they don't, let them go. If they want to, they have their own incentive and you can just have a great conversation. The goal here is to understand that everyone has their own reasons for talking to you. And if you can understand those things, you can play the game a little bit better. All right. So another thing that's non-financial for networking contacts is that a lot of people have been helped by other people in the past. So most people get jobs through people that they've met in their career. So they like to pass it on and feel good. So the whole idea of passing it on, helping someone because you've been helped in the past, that's a big, the whole idea of reciprocity is really big in the networking world. And that's why a lot of people network. So again, you don't have to give people reasons to meet with you. You just have to ask to meet, and the ones who want to will say yes. So put yourself out there and talk to people and understand what they want, right? So when you get a job, every single company that posts a job has to justify the role before they ever talk to you, all right? So they already understand why they need to hire a software developer, all right? They've put together a one-pager or a budget doc that says, here's what we're trying to do with this role. Here's how much it's going to cost for a good developer. And here's the ROI that we expect from this new hire, because they're going to help us launch an app or fix a bug or do X, Y, and Z. All right. So they've already put that all together. Now, all we have to do is say, ask ourselves the question, what is in that budget report? What did they do? What did they give to their CEO to justify hiring this job, right? Because every company that's hiring has a problem. And your skills are what they're paying for in order to solve that problem, all right? So I ask people all the time, what is the ROI of your role? And very few people can answer it, but I'll ask it here. What do you think the reason that they're hiring you for? What do you think the ROI of that problem is if you were to come on the team and fix it? Just throw out some ideas here. It doesn't have to be perfect. We're making estimated guesses here.
To stay
Say that one more
competitive.
time. Or go, yeah, go ahead. Ernest.
What was that?
Let's go. I just said to stay competitive.
To stay competitive. So maybe they're falling behind in their industry. What was the other idea that came up?
Oh, I just wanted you to ask the question again.
What do you think the ROI of a developer role is? The return on the investment. Sorry, go ahead.
Like mentioned before that they might have a problem that they don't have a person who knows the skills to solve it.
Mm-hmm.
So they need to hire somebody.
Exactly. So when we think about ROI, it's return on investment. So let's say we get to the point where you're negotiating your salary, right? And how many people are here are nervous about negotiating your salary? Yeah, everyone's hand should be up. When no one, I've met like 2 people that are really good at negotiating in my entire coaching career. So when it comes to negotiations, what makes you nervous about it? Why do you feel like it's scary to ask for an extra $10,000 or $15,000?
I think what's kind of tricky is not really having a good idea of what like the median is in the field. So getting a sense of like what's appropriate is something that's kind of scary for me. I don't even know where, what's a good offer and what isn't, I guess.
Yeah. And you can think about it in terms of, well, we can go to payscale.com. We can go look at some averages, right, of jobs in your area. You can also, while networking, ask people, what was your starting salary when you entered into the industry? Or what was your range that you worked in? These are all good things that'll give us data points, right? But the one thing that you can be certain of is that no company is expecting to make less money off of your work than they pay you. All right. There was someone I was talking to on a podcast that I did, and they said, you'll never be in a room negotiating a salary with someone who makes less money than you. So whatever number you think is scary, they probably don't think is a big number because they already get paid more than that. So if you're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to ask for another $5,000, this person's making 50K more than you, 100K more than you, right? They're going to be like 5,000. Who cares? We're already paying you 60. Like, what's 5 when we're already giving you 60 in healthcare, right? So the key thing here is like they've already justified the cost of this role, and they've done it without having you as an individual in mind. And a big thing that I want to encourage you to do is separate your self-worth from the salary that they offer, because the salary that they offer is a calculus that they've done internally based on their budget and their expectations of this role. They probably have a range of maybe 20K, and anything that they can get within that range will be good enough because they expect to make more than what they pay you off of this job. All right. So whatever fears you're having around finances and things like that, what we want to do is say, I don't really have to know exactly what the ROI is. I just know that they have an ROI in mind. So an example of what this could be, let's say you come on as a junior and you go, well, the actual ROI of a junior role is pretty low. I'm just fixing bugs on the website. Yeah, but who was fixing those bugs before? If no one was fixing those bugs before, that means they were losing customers and losing revenue, and it was impacting the business's bottom line. If they had a senior person fixing those bugs, that means they were overpaying for that person's time, and that person wasn't able to go work on bigger projects that would make the company more money. So while you just might be fixing some low-level bugs, you might be freeing up the senior person to go launch an app that makes the company 500K in additional revenue, right? So suddenly your small 50K, 60K job is making 500K in revenue for the business. And you can sit there and do that math in your head. I mean, it's, monkey math. It's not like accurate. You don't have the financials, but you can start to realize why you're valuable and why your skills are valuable for this role. All right. Any questions on this ROI idea? I know we're kind of moving quickly through some of these things, but what I'm trying to do is just reduce your anxieties around why companies make the decisions they do, so that we can shift our perspective away from, am I good enough, to here's what I can do to help. Any questions or thoughts on this?
I don't have a question, but I just had a thing to say. I am a manager right now, and I feel like I kind of agree with what you're saying. It's like whenever we hire someone, if they're really just selling themselves, and as long as we really like them and really want them, like if we said, oh, like you're gonna start at 13 and they accept it, great. If a girl comes in the same situation and she wants like 18, we would do it if we really want her. So I feel like the worst people can say is no, and you have nothing to lose really.
Yeah.
Because if they
And
want
then-
you, they'll
And
do
then
it.
exactly. And the no is not a rejection. It's not no, get the hell out of here. We'll never talk to you again. It's no, we can't go up to that number. It's not in our budget, but would you still accept the original number? And then you just go, sure, because I don't have anything else going on. So let's do it. You know, like there's no harm. The way that you harm it is when you do what someone that I worked with, oh, this was like the saddest situation, but they went in, negotiated, won the negotiation, and then went back to the company and said, but I need a couple more weeks because I'm interviewing with another company, and I just want to have all of my ducks in a row. And the CEO wrote that person back and said, I'm offended. We came up to the number that you wanted. We made all the concessions and you're still not going to say yes. We rescind the offer. As long as you don't do that, you're probably okay. All right. So yeah, 100%. What we're trying to do is get to the point where you're looking at this stuff as a business transaction, not as like a big spotlight on you about being the most perfect candidate. If you're trustworthy and you're helpful and you make good conversation, you should be fine. Now, if you really don't know why a company would hire for your job, just Google it. Why should I hire a software engineer? Type it into Google. Look at what shows up in the search results. Look at the contractor companies that sell contract coders, right? Go to their sales page. It'll say why you need to hire us. We will reduce the bugs on your site, improve your security, increase retention, so on and so forth. Go take a look at the articles that are written for entrepreneurs and business owners to say, like, should you hire a business analyst, or should you hire a web developer, or should you hire a front end or a back end? Go look at those articles and read the explanations of why you should hire for these roles, because this is what the business teams are doing. This is what the managers that you're talking to are doing. They're saying, why should we hire a software developer? And then they go look at the 10 reasons and go, yeah, that's the one that we need. And then they put the listing up for the software developer. And the beautiful thing about this is that you can borrow language from these sites. If it resonates with you and it's something that you help with, like fixing bugs or whatever it might be, put it in your bullets on your resume, put it in your LinkedIn profile, bring it up in interviews, talk about these things, because it'll show that you understand the value of your role at the company. And this is the key of everything that we're talking about today. I want you to start selling to companies the way that companies sell to you. All right. Do you think companies are going out there? Well, let's just take a look at Nike. Why do you think Nike is selling you a pair of shoes? What's their incentive? Remember incentives. What are their incentives to sell you shoes?
Money.
Money, right? It's pretty simple. They want to make money. Why do they make good shoes? Because they want to make more money, right? So could you imagine if their billboards said, our shareholders want more money, please buy more shoes? Would you run out to your local Nike store and buy some $300 pair of Jordans because they put this ad up? No. So instead they say, just do it. It's only a crazy dream until you do it, right? Sell to them like they sell to you. The company doesn't care that you need a paycheck to pay your rent. They're happy to give you a paycheck to pay your rent, But the sales message you give them can't be, I want money. And I hear this all the time. It's like a cliche joke, right? It's like, why do you want to work at this company? Because I want to get paid, right? You'll see that TikTok over and over again for years on end, right? So everyone everywhere just wants to get paid for their work. So it's not a differentiator. Every company everywhere wants to get paid for their work. So it's not a differentiator. So we can't use that as our sales message. We have to go beyond that. And we have to say, well, why would they buy it? What sales message can I put out there that will engage them? And if you talk about customer experience, that's a sales message. If you talk about customer engagement, that's a sales message. If you talk about clicks to purchase and improving revenue or saving money by X number of whatever, hitting them with the things that they care about, making the business grow, making the customers happy, creating a more efficient systems, tracking more data, whatever the things are that you're interested in and you want to help companies do, focus on those things first. All right, just do it. But this is going to be kind of the core of the rest of our discussion here, is this talk to them the way that they talk to you. Any additional thoughts or questions on this before we move on?
I guess, can you give like an example of like how you would talk to Nike, I guess?
For sure.
Yeah.
So Nike is a company that's heavily focused on allowing their users, their buyers, their customers to improve their performance. That's the big thing. Just do it. Just get out there and do it, and then improve your performance. One of the things that they've done is create their Nike Run app that tracks where you run, how fast you run, all of your stats, and so on, right? So not only do they want to sell you products that help you run, they want to give you tools that help you track your performance and your progress over time. So what you can do is say, based on Nike's website, and you go to their mission page and you read through some things, and you say, based on your company's mission, I understand that your goal is to create lifelong customers that want to engage in your brand in a variety of different ways, from the physical products to the digital products to the overarching community that you're building. As a developer, I'm really focused on creating engaging long-term customer experiences for brands. What I think Nike is doing well is X, Y, and Z. Where I think we have some opportunities is in these different areas. What are the types of things that you're looking to do as a business, and why are you hiring for this role? I'd love to discuss ways that we can build better code that engages your users over the long term. Something along those lines. Does that sort of resonate with you? And that's, I'd have to go into their website and look at their mission statement again, just to make sure it all resonates. But this is what we want to do. So we want to say they care about these things. So that's what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to tie my skills to the things that they care about, the same way Nike ties their shoes to the things you care about. They're not going to try and sell a hiking shoe to a CrossFit person, right? They're going to say, what kinds of exercise do you do? And you say, oh, I do CrossFit. Oh, well, here's our new CrossFit shoe. Boom. Sale is much easier because they know their customer and they're selling them the right things. The opposite would be, you go into a company and you're like, I'm really focused on efficient systems. And they're like, we care about customer engagement. You're like, I should have read the mission statement, So we always want to be talking in the way that they already think. In the same way, Nike doesn't want to sell a hiking shoe to a CrossFit person, right?
Yes. Do you suggest, if we're going to like different interviews, do you suggest like editing your resume each time to fit like their mission,
You
or
don't
editing
typically
your
need
cover letter?
to. You can keep your resume, and you can keep your resume more broad. Your cover letter should be tailored, And then when you're in the room interviewing, you're asking questions to surface up their needs, to like figure out what they're focused on, what's this role focused on, and then you're speaking to those needs with examples. So keep your resume a little bit more high level. In your cover letter, I have some templates. If you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, I'm happy to share them with you. But what you can do is you can, in your first paragraph, state their mission statement, then say why it resonates with your work, and then the rest of the cover letter can be more generic. But in that first statement, you want to talk about them and what that company wants. So to the point earlier where I said most cover letters start with, hi, my name is, skip over that. Start with their mission. Your company's mission is blank, and that resonates with my work as a developer in these ways. And I'm really excited for this opportunity to potentially bring value to your team. Then the second paragraph is about you. My background doing all these things has made me someone who can help your mission in these ways. And then the final one is you and the company together. Thank you for reviewing my application. I look forward to bringing value to the team. So it's them, you, and then us together. So if I was writing it, I'd be like the company's problem, the company's mission, my skills, and how we're going to bring that together to help the company grow. That's my sort of really quick 3-paragraph cover letter. But definitely hit me up, Martin McGovern, on LinkedIn, and I'm happy to share those templates as well.
I have a quick question.
Go ahead.
Sorry. So I understand the whole like using your skills that you've had and kind of just tying it to like their goals and stuff. But what I feel like would be difficult the most is like based off like your past experience, because that's kind of what you're going to talk about. And what if it's like completely different from what they want? How would you tie them together? Or like, I don't know. I know in interviews, like sometimes you have to like alter the things you do to make them think that like it works with it, but how, I don't know how like you would choose something completely opposite and switch it to what they want.
For
you know?
sure. So the key there, and we're going to get into this when you write your pitch later on, is how do you tie it together? So when I introduced myself, I didn't say, my name is Martin, I'm a career coach, and all I've ever been is a career coach, right? I said, I started my career in marketing and advertising. It taught me about behavioral psychology. And now I help you use those same tools in order to get money back from companies, right? That's what you're going to do as well. You use your past as a differentiator. So I used to be a teacher. I was really good at lesson planning. That showed me that I had a knack for organizing information. And I really enjoyed the technical side of things like tracking student data. That got me interested in coding, which led me into this career where now I use those same skills that I had as a teacher to improve businesses, back ends and improve their websites. So you bring it full circle, and we'll talk about how to do that. But everyone's background can be tied into their current work in some way, shape, or form. The only problem is that as job seekers, we're tending to run away from things rather than run towards things. And we're always focused on the worst part of our previous jobs instead of the reason the things that we liked about them. So what you want to do is ask yourself, what was the thing I enjoyed about my last job? And how does that relate to what I'm currently doing? Because probably there's some correlation there. And then how do I connect those two dots in a way that makes sense for the company? All right. And we'll go into that in more detail. So another thing I want to call out here is that job boards are billboards. They are lies. So we already mentioned this at the beginning. You only need about 60% of what's listed in that job board. I hear all the time someone say, well, I don't have this, this, and this, and that's in the job description. And I go, yeah, but that's in the nice to have section of the job description where it literally says, it would be nice if you had these things. These are not requirements. Stop making them requirements. Most of what's in the job description is BS. If you look at a job description, it's a lot of like ego. It's like our company is the best, most cutting edge, whatever bull crap is they're going to say, right? And every company does this, it's fine. But like at no point in the job board does it say the last person quit because we overworked them and they burnt out and we didn't pay them enough, right? So regardless of whether or not that's true, why do job seekers always show up and go, I'm really insecure and I'm just starting out, and boy, I sure hope you teach me how to do this job, and I hope I can learn, I'm really, I hope I can get a break, Meanwhile, the company's like, you're gonna really grow in this role and you've got so much potential, and like, we're gonna take care of you and we're family. They're giving you a bunch of lies and you're giving them too much honesty, right? So I just want to bring us back into alignment. They're BSing you a bit and you get to BS them a bit. And by BS, I mean marketing. So market yourself appropriately. Don't lie. The companies aren't lying. They're selling you the job that is available right now. And you're selling them the skills that you have, but you're both doing it through a marketing lens. Because how many people have gotten a job and then like 3 months in, the work you're doing doesn't match the job description at all? Has anyone been in that position? There's always heads that shake when I ask that. So if the companies can just willy-nilly change things and lie while you're applying for them, then you get to at least market yourself appropriately. All right. So honesty is more about your willingness to help, not about your perfection as a human. Okay. If you're willing to help and you're willing to learn and you can Google the answers and put in the effort, then talk as though you can. Okay. Don't wait until you've done it before you talk confidently about it, because that just means you're always going to be a step behind where you should be in your career. All right. Any questions on that? Cool. And here's the beauty of it all. You're not supposed to know everything. You're not supposed to have every answer. It would be weird if you did. If you had every single answer to every single question they asked you, you were probably overqualified for the job and should be getting paid more and going for a more senior role. So when you don't know the answer, ask questions. Curiosity is better than being a know-it-all. And I've actually had people who, when they interview on the hiring side, they will purposely ask more and more complicated questions to see when you'll say, I actually don't know the answer to that, but I'm happy to go research it and get up to speed by day one. How is your team currently using this? And what are some of the things that I should be looking out for as I get up to speed? The person who is saying this, he's like, look, I'll ask questions that I don't even know the answer to, just to see if they're going to admit that they don't know it or if they're going to try and BS me, because I don't want someone on my team who can't admit that they don't know something. I need to have a team of people that will say, I don't know that, but let me go figure it out. I need them to not waste 2 weeks pretending that they know something when they don't. All right. So it's important to ask questions. Your research only goes so far. You'll never know everything. Build rapport in these interviews. When you're talking to people, when you're networking, make it more of a Q&A, more of a conversation. They ask you questions, you ask them questions, you banter back and forth. It shouldn't just be them grilling you the whole time. Because at the end of the day, they just want to be able to trust that you can figure it out. They're not looking for someone that has every answer. It would be, again, weird if you did. If you're like, I actually know all the financials of your company, you'd be like, are you a hacker? How did you figure out the financials of our company? That's crazy, right? There's a lot of stuff you shouldn't know until you're in the job, right? So ask questions and show your excitement and curiosity. It goes a lot farther than trying to over prepare and be perfect. Any questions on this before we move forward? All right. So the key here again is putting them first. Number one, why are they hiring for this role? You should have a handful of ideas of why they might be hiring that you will confirm or deny while networking or interviewing. All right. What skills do you have that solve these problems? Your skills plus time plus Google equals your ability to help. And what is the ROI you bring to the business? You won't have a specific number, but I want you to be confident that there is an ROI to your skill set right now. And now we get into your stories. So typically when someone's prepping for an interview, they're trying to come up with like 50 to 100 stories to answer all the hundreds of different interview questions that could possibly come up. And it's exhausting, but I want to take some of that pressure off your shoulders. You really only need about 4 to 6 professional stories to be able to answer most interview questions. The next thing I want you to focus on is the key learnings from those stories, because that's what they really care about. No one actually cares about the conflict you had with a coworker. They care about what you learned from that conflict, all right? And then speak more to what you can do than what you've done in the past, all right? So this is kind of the, well, I haven't done coding full-time in the past before. Yeah, but you've built curriculum or you've done X, Y, and Z, and that has prepared you to do this in the future, plus the studies that you're going through right now, all right? So things that you don't want to say when they say, why do you want to work here? I like to solve problems and I want to make a difference. Why do you think these are bad things to say?
Because literally everyone says it.
Literally everyone says it. Also, what the hell does it mean, right? It's like every company that says we're going to change the world. All right, answer your freaking customer service phone before you talk about changing the world, all right? I can't even get someone on the phone. When someone tells me I want to be a coder because I like to solve problems, I go, great. I know someone who needs their dog walked. Would you do that? No, well, that's not what I want to do. But I thought you said you solve problems. That person has a problem, go solve it, right? Oh no, you like to solve specific problems, coding problems, right? There's a very specific set of problems that you want to solve that are different than the set of problems I want to solve, right? I want to solve coaching problems, emotional problems, like marketing problems, communication problems. You want to solve something different. So ask yourself, not just I like to solve problems, but which specific problems, front-end problems, back-end problems, data problems, design problems. What are the things that you care about most? And how can you communicate that better, right? Because what they hear when you say that stuff is, I don't understand the value of my work or why you would hire me. You need to know why a company would hire you to convince them to hire you. You need to think of yourself as someone who is hireable to convince someone to hire you, right? If I came to you and I said, boy, I'd really love to get more experience writing resumes. Will you hire me to write my resume? What would you say to me?
I would say only if I don't have to pay you.
There you go. Only if I don't have to pay
Yeah.
you. If you want to do it for free, or if you want to go get more experience and then come back to me, right? So why would a company want to hire you if you're going to them and saying, I really just want to learn how to do this, how to break into this. It's like, right? We need to focus on what they want to hear. So how do we actually get these points across? Stories are what get these points across, all right? Typically, we all have about 4 to 6 projects that we've worked on throughout our career at this point, including college if you're, more recently graduated. Stories of projects that we've done. So we did a capstone project, or I launched this in my previous role, or I did X, Y, and Z, right? And within each of those project stories, you can ask yourself, what was a time that I struggled in that story? What was a time that I succeeded in that story? What was a time that I had a conflict in that story? And what was a time that I showed leadership in that story? So each story can give you 4 to 6 different mini stories that you can tell to answer questions in an interview, right? So personally, there's this one time I was working on a premium coaching product, and it had a money back guarantee. And it was this, whole thing at this school that doesn't do it anymore. And I had leadership experiences in that. I had conflicts with coworkers in that period. I had times that I didn't succeed to the degree that I wanted to, and times that I overshot my expectations, right? So I can break down each of those stories, and in an interview, when they ask me a variety of questions about leadership and conflict and so on and so forth, I can talk about this one project multiple different times. And if you have 2 or 3 different projects that you can talk to with 4 or 5 stories from each project, it covers the entire interview. And then you don't have to prepare 100 answers to 100 different questions. So this is just something that I want you to do to sort of recontextualize how to approach interviews in a much more manageable way. Any questions on that before we move forward? Cool. Because the thing is that we're trying to avoid being vague. So many times when I'm doing mock interviews with people, I'll say, tell me about a time you had a conflict with a coworker. And they'll go, well, this one time I had a conflict with a coworker. Oh, it was really stressful, but we figured it out and things were good, things were good at the end. I was like, good for you. I have no picture in my mind of what happened, how it happened, what you had a conflict about, how you resolved it, what you learned from that conflict. It's just some vague black box, right? So always give specifics and paint the picture so they can picture you doing your job, which then helps them picture you in the job, all right? So put in their mind a vision of how you work, right? And pull from coursework, projects, extracurricular activities, really pull out all the stops, everything that you've ever worked on. Ask yourself, what are the stories in these projects? Now, how do we actually tell these stories? This is where it gets a little bit tricky. Sometimes I'm a rambler, people tend to ramble or they don't say enough, right? It's hard to know how much to say and where to start and stop a story. But there's this nice method called the STAR method. Has anyone heard of this? Couple of nods. So the STAR method, you can Google it, it's all over the internet, is a way to tell stories in an interview that's very structured. It's situation, task, action, result. Now, if you want to go Google it, that's great. I'm going to adjust it slightly to a worse acronym, the SPARL method, because I think the STAR method misses one incredibly important thing, which is the learning from the experience. So when you tell a story in the interview, you want to set up the situation, explain the problem, describe the actions you took to resolve the problem, talk about the results you got from those actions, and then explain what you learned from this experience that you'll bring into your next role. So again, take a conflict with a coworker story. The situation was, I was working at this company on this project with these people. Company, project, people. You painted the picture. Now I can picture you at a company working on a project with these people around you, right? Now use fake names if you need to. Then a problem arose, okay? We had a disagreement about whether the bullet or whether the buttons on the website should be blue or red, okay? So I was working on this team building this website with these people. We had a disagreement about the buttons on the website. The action that we took was we tested out different button colors. I wanted to test out the blue, they wanted to test out the red. The result was we found out that the red ones were actually the ones that performed better. And I had to sort of, accept to the results of the test and move on from there. That was the result. Now, if you just ended it there, it's a little weird. But what you want to do is add on the learning. What I learned from this process is that testing is really important. Looking at the data instead of people's opinions is also really important. And I also learned that I'm humble enough to allow my opinions to be proven wrong in service of the team and the company goals. So now you're setting up, here's why I'm a great candidate for this role because of what I've done in the past, right? So that's just a very brief example. And we don't want to use supercharged stories. You want to tell stories that are non-emotional, ones that you've learned from little things that have happened even. It doesn't have to be like, this person punched me at the office and I punched them back and we both got fired, right? That's not going to be a good conversation for an interview. You don't want to talk about Gerald or Becky who makes you so angry that you get red in the face and it changes the whole tone of the interview. talk about things that are actually relevant to what you're going to be doing in these roles, or at least that show a certain way of showing up in the office that is relevant. Because 80% of your job is just not derailing everything, right? Most of what people are doing in their jobs is just being a pleasant person to work with who doesn't derail all the projects. And then you get your actual job done, right? So if you can show the person in the interview that you're just a decent person to work with who's curious and who wants to help, you're 80% of the way there. And then you can just get the technical done and get the job, okay? So again, you don't have to be perfect. You just have to be excited, helpful, curious, and again, helpful. I think that's the biggest one. Just show you want to help. And we've already hit on this. The learning is the most important piece. So focus on that when you're telling stories. Now, this is kind of a funny slide, a little bit controversial. They're going to ask you some really bad, lazy, stupid questions in an interview. Has anyone been asked these bad, lazy, stupid questions? Everyone's hand should be up. If anyone says, tell me about yourself, that is a bad, stupid, lazy question. Why are they asking you that question? I'm opening it up. Why do you think they're asking you that question?
I
They
guess
didn't read your
just to get
resume?
to know you,
They didn't read your resume. What was the other thing?
or just get to know like your background and like the basics.
Get to know your background and the basics. So often I'll have someone come up to me and be like, I can't believe I spent so many hours applying for this job and I got there and they hadn't even read my resume. And I was like, you expected them to read your resume? That's quite an expectation. This person probably got pulled off a project 10 minutes before the interview and was told to run into the room and interview you. Like, companies are inefficient machines that have a bunch of people running around with their hair on fire trying to put out problems, right? Like, you got to have a little bit of if you've ever worked at a company and seen how it works on the inside, we all know this. Companies are a mess, right? So it's okay, number one, that you're a little bit of a mess. We're kind of on even footing, remember? But the other thing is, most people who are interviewing have not been trained on how to interview. So they don't know how to do it well. So they're maybe not as nervous as you, but definitely nervous, right? Most people don't like to be in the position. Some people like it too much and they're jerks in the interview, but most people are just trying, they want you to win. They don't want to interview anyone else. They hope that you're the right candidate because then they can just move on with their day and get back to work and not have to bring all their work home, right? So when they ask you basic questions that they downloaded from a form online, which by the way, you have access to, don't feel like you have to answer their bad questions with bad answers, all right? So very often I'll have someone say, tell me about yourself. And the job seeker will respond, well, what would you like to know? Well, they have no idea what they'd like to know. That's why they're asking you this crappy question, right? What they're really saying when they say, tell me about yourself, is, I don't know how to kick off an interview. Would you do it for me? That's what they're really asking. So you get to decide, how do I want to start this interview? What do I want to talk about? What topics do I want to bring up so that they ask me more questions about those topics, right? If they ask you a question like, what are your strengths and weaknesses? It's a stupid question. It's been asked a million times. How does it help? What do you think most people say in response to the question, what are your strengths and weaknesses? What's the most common answers, do you think?
Workaholic.
I'm a workaholic. What else?
Organize, perfectionist, yeah.
I'm organized. I'm a perfectionist. I work too hard. I procrastinate. How does any of this help the company make a decision? Again, put yourself in the shoes of the hiring manager, of the interviewer. How does it help them make a decision to know that you procrastinate? Does anyone here not procrastinate ever in their entire life in any way, shape, or form? I see no hands. Because
Procrastinating.
you're currently procrastinating. We all procrastinate something. Some of us procrastinate everything. Others of us procrastinate certain things. but everyone's procrastinating something, so it's a non-answer. It's like saying, I like to solve problems. That's literally the definition of a job. So everyone likes to solve problems, if you look at it that way, right? Even the clerk at the store is solving a problem of beep, 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 right? And getting you through the line. So don't answer bad questions with bad answers. When someone says, what are your strengths and weaknesses? Think to yourself, what would be a helpful answer rather than a generic bad answer to a bad question? Instead of saying, I like to solve problems, that's my strength, and I procrastinate, that's my weakness, which gives the interviewer no additional data to make a decision on, we can say, I think this question is actually asking, if I was put on this team, what tasks should they assign me and what tasks should they give to other people? Now I can actually answer the question in a way that's helpful, right? So the things you should assign me, anything data related. I love data. That's my strength. The things you should not assign to me, anything public speaking related. I have a fear of public speaking. It doesn't mean I can't do public speaking. It just means that the extrovert on the team who can't shut up should probably be the one that does it. Don't say it like that, but you get my point, right? So what we're doing here is we're actually trying to be helpful to the interviewer by answering their questions with information that helps them make decisions on hiring. So for me personally, if any of your students are emotional and on the verge of tears and struggling with the job search, send them to me. I can get them back to a place where they feel better and are more productive. That's my job as a coach. What you shouldn't ask me to do is do a predictive analysis of the data to figure out when people will get jobs. I've been asked to do that in jobs in the past, and my brain explodes because I can't do math. So these are the things. I know these things, and anytime that I convince a company to hire me by saying I do like data, I always regret it because then I'm in a role that I'm not supposed to be in, right? So actually use this as a way to weed out opportunities as well. Not that any of you wants to weed out opportunities right now. You want every job to give you a job, but these are the things, like we're trying to help them make a decision. So as you're sitting in these interviews, think a little bit like a politician. Don't go full politician. Full politician is, I don't care what question they ask me, I'm telling the story of Joe the farmer. Not good. But you should show up already ready with the stories that you want to tell. I want to tell a story of this project, I want to tell the story of this project, and I want to tell the story of this project. And I really want to get those things across. So they're going to ask me leadership questions and other things, and I'm going to really try and pull these stories in. I might not get to all of them, but I want to make sure I at least hit on these 3 ideas in this interview in some way, shape, or form. All right. Does that make sense? Any follow-up questions on that?
I have a question. What do you think is the best thing to say when they ask you, what are your weaknesses? Because I feel like everyone answers that, and unless they're dumb, they're lying, essentially. Right? I don't know. Like, what do you think? What is the right answer for that?
Well, it depends on the person. So my answer to that question is I'm really good at handling emotions. That's my strength. And I'm not as good at analyzing data. So when I'm on a team, I work best when I'm paired up with someone who's better at the data, and I can focus more on the coaching side of things and doing my job. The way that this has worked in the past, and this is where giving stories and examples is helpful. The way that this has worked in the past is when I was coaching with this one company, I was responsible for both the coaching and the data analysis. I was really good at getting on calls, working with people, helping them, navigate a divorce and a job search at the same time. I was able to track all the data and put it in the system and keep it all up to date. But when it came to actually putting together spreadsheets and creating predictive analyses, that's where I would need help. I would need to be able to work with a data person on the team or hand it off to another team or do something like that in order to get the results that we need to be able to use that data in the ways that we need to. So I'm able to collaborate with data people and track data for them, but I'm not personally the person that's great at analyzing the data. And that gives them enough context to know where to put me on the team, because I have coaching jobs that are heavily data focused and coaching jobs that are heavily like coaching focused, and I don't want the data ones. Maybe in your case, what would you say you want to spend 80% of your day doing, and what would you want to spend 20% of your day doing? What would be your answer?
Are you asking me?
Mhm. If you could just choose your ideal day, 80% of your day is spent doing X and 20% of your day is spent doing Y.
For any job or for?
For the one that you want, the job that you want. Or we can look backwards. What did you hate doing in your previous roles?
I don't have an answer.
That's okay. That's okay. In my previous jobs, when I worked in marketing, the thing I disliked the most was dealing with spreadsheets that had thousands and thousands of lines and keeping those up to date. That's one of the reasons why I'm a much better emotional coach and not as great of a data analyst. I could also, if I don't want to talk about the emotional side of coaching, I can talk about like communications. I'm really good at helping people write resumes and tweak language and send follow-ups and things like that. So I can focus on different aspects of things that I like about my job and downplay the things that I don't like about my job. So if does anyone in this chat here, what is something in a previous job that you had? What is something that you hated about that job? That you really, if you could just never do that work again, what would it be?
I actually just thought of one.
Cool.
I hate making the schedule for people.
Okay, so scheduling.
Like for the employees, yes.
So project management.
But I like everything else about managing except for that.
Okay, so you could say and this again, so now we're getting into nuance. If the job specifically says you need to be really good at project management and scheduling, don't use that as your weakness. If I was applying for a job that said you really need to know analytics, I would either not apply for it or I would not say that as my weakness. I would come up with something less targeted. But if you can say like, where I work best on a team is when I'm on a team that has a project manager who creates the schedules and keeps everyone on track. And I'm able to focus on these aspects of my job that I'm actually really good at. And so it's more about balancing the two scales than it is like turning a weakness into a strength. Okay. And you can say like, I'm really good at managing my own schedule. I'm just not necessarily good at managing like everyone on the team schedules or putting together Gantt charts or whatever the thing might be. Right. And so that's where you can be like, I'm good at managing my day-to-day schedule, but I'm not great at managing like a Gantt chart with 50 people and like keeping all the teams on task. I want to be in the weeds coding and building the website, not keeping everyone on track. I want to be like a contributor in that way. So that might be a way that we can work on your answer to make it a little bit better. Maybe we have to tweak it to be more positive, whatever we might have to do, but what are your thoughts on that?
I really like that. I think that's probably not the job I'm looking for, obviously, after this, but I like the idea of like where that goes to where you're saying, where you're just being honest, but still like confident of what you have to offer.
And that's with everything in the interview and your pitch and everything. The reason people feel like imposters is because they feel like they have to say that they're good at everything. We're not all good at everything, and that's okay as long as we're trying and we're being helpful. And you can say to someone, look, I've literally been on teams where they say, can you take over all of the data tracking and analysis? And I say, it's not my strength, but I'm happy to do it. Here's where my limits are. And then once we hit those limits, we're going to need to bring someone on. Is that okay? And they go, yeah, we don't have anyone else to do it, so we're going to need you to do it. But it's like that confidence of saying, I'm not perfect, but I will do my best. And let's maybe check in a few times and like double check my work so that it doesn't derail anything in the future. like you can make it funny too, you know? Like these are the things, like they want someone who understands how they work so that they don't have to figure out how you work. You can tell them how you work, you know? So you're making their life easier by calling these things out earlier, right? So like, if I know I'm generally more introverted and just want to be like a coder who is an individual contributor and like, I don't have to deal with clients, say that. Like, I don't want to be dealing with clients all day in, day out, all day. I want to be coding, but say it in a way that they want to hear it. That's where we get into the storytelling piece. All right. Any other questions on that? Cool. And we can always follow up at the end if there's more questions. The key thing here is to focus less on what you have done, because as we all know, you're about to graduate and you probably don't have like a million websites that you've coded or whatever it might be, right? So focus more on what you can do, given enough time and access to Google. All right. I love that phrase. Time and access to Google, I can accomplish these things. All right. So they don't expect you to be able to do everything that their site needs on day one. They expect you to be able to learn how to do it as you go and keep them informed of what you're getting done and what still needs to get done. All right. So it's better to be a good communicator that doesn't throw the team off track, who can figure things out, than to be like Superman, right? How many people have worked with someone who's brilliant, but they're an a-hole? And yeah, they know how to do everything, but no one wants to work with them. Yep, we've all worked with that person. That person sucks. No one wants to be on the team with that person. But you're more than willing to be on a team with someone who's like, oh, I don't know that, but they're like really good to get along with, and they always figure it out within a couple of days. Like you make concessions for that person, right? So again, we don't need to be perfect. Just try your best and speak to what you can do and ask questions. So again, when it comes to sharing your stories, what are your top 4 to 6 struggles and successes? What are the projects that you've worked on? And what are the different ways that you can talk about those projects? What did you learn from these experiences? And how will these learnings inform your future work? All right, now we're getting into where the rubber meets the road. We're going to actually write your pitch. We're going to bring it all together. Don't ignore your past, incorporate it, simplify your narrative, and then put together a pitch that connects. What we don't want to say when we're pitching is, I didn't like my last job, so I quit. Or I changed jobs to make more money. I think these are pretty self-explanatory why they're not right. It just sounds like you're going to quit things that you don't like, right? We don't want to come across as entitled or a quitter or anything like that. So we want to always focus on the positive sides of the things that we've done. I could go on for hours about why I quit my first marketing job, why I didn't like my boss and all the different hours and the burnout and the blah, blah, blah. No one cares. It's just a sob story that everyone tells me to shut up and stop telling, all right? So what are the things that I can talk about that are positive? Well, I really did love the customer research. I really did love the behavioral psychology. I loved learning how to write really concise communications. I really enjoyed educating people about marketing. I enjoyed bringing together focus groups and creating advertisements. I enjoyed the design. There's a million things I enjoyed. Talk about the things you enjoyed and why enjoying those things led you to the next role. So I enjoyed all of those things. And because I enjoyed teaching people about marketing, I ended up teaching workshops. The workshops led me into education. Education led me into coaching. And suddenly I'm a career coach instead of a marketer. It was like a crazy transition. But it was all based in positive changes. Could I also tell that story from a negative way? You betcha. But let's try to focus on the positive side of it, because there's thousands of truths to every story, but there's at least 2 truths to every story. There's the positive truth and the negative truth. It's better to be focused on the positive truth, all right? We also want to incorporate our past because that's what's going to differentiate ourselves. I once had someone who was a professional poker player for 4 years, and then he wanted to be a data analyst. But he refused to talk about his 4-year stint as a professional poker player because he thought it was taboo and that people wouldn't like it. So his resume just had a 4-year gap on it. And I asked him, I said, what do you think is worse? Someone who looks at your resume and says, holy cow, this person built an entire career out of being a poker player for 4 years and is probably really good at statistics because they were because they're trying to become a data analyst. Or this person was a man of mystery who fell off the face of the earth. And I'm going to make the assumption that they were on drugs for 4 years, right? What's worse? It's better to talk about the things you've done and then connect with someone over it. I'm like, imagine you're in an interview and the person that you're talking to likes to play poker once a month with their buddies or their family. And now you're just going to spend the rest of the interview talking about poker and how you were a professional poker player and how cool that is and how it ties into your data work. Way better conversation than, well, what have you done? What have you been doing the past 4 years? Nothing. I would like to talk about this job and not my past. Okay, born identity. This is some creepy stuff, right? We don't want that. Use your past as a differentiator. Double down on the present, all right? What you did before is what you did before. Don't let it become an insecurity. Say, that's what I did. What I liked about it was this. That led me to what I'm doing now. And this is what I'm really excited about and can't wait to talk to you about, all right? So double down on the present and then focus on their future. I used to do this. It led me to what I'm doing today. And I'm really excited about using these skills to help your company grow. What are you trying to do as a company and how can these skills help? So bringing it all together, if someone were to say, tell me about yourself, you start with your past, you bring it to your present, and you tie it to the future. All right. So back to what we were saying before, tell me about yourself is a lazy question, but don't give them a lazy answer. Don't just ramble off 100 things that are just non-connected and rambly, right? What you can say is, I started my career in education. I learned that I really loved creating curriculum and tracking student progress, and that I had an eye for the technical side of things. I also had an interest in tech, and I was curious how I might be able to apply these skills in a technical role. So I took some boot camps. I took a boot camp on coding. Now I'm making the transition into web development, bringing in my previous skills paired with my coding work to help companies like yours create more efficient code that better engages your customers. What sort of things are you looking to build with this role? I'm excited to help. So you see how that narrative connects beginning to end, where I come from, what I'm doing, and how it helps. And then it opens up the rest of the interview for a conversation. I'm throwing a lot at you. I want to pause there. Any questions on this, or does anyone want to go a little bit deeper into it? I know this is easier said than done kind of stuff.
Do you reckon when you're talking about your past, if there's would you recommend just completely sort of avoiding maybe reasons why you left and maybe just focus on what the opportunity that the next thing that you went to was, and maybe just wait for them to ask the question about it and just,
Yeah.
you try to not even, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I could talk about that. I worked for a lady that was a total psycho, and I worked every weekend, and she gave me a terrible performance review, and I was doing work that didn't align with me, and we did a strengths finders thing, and the strengths finders thing told me that my entire job was in my weaknesses and that nothing I was doing was in my. I could go on for an hour about it. None of you care. None of you want to hear it. It's maybe for fun over a drink, but not in an interview for sure. Don't focus on the negative. It'll just make you come off as negative, or worst case scenario, you start thinking about everything you hate. Now the tone of the interview is negative. And then the rest of the time, like, how do you get back to a positive place, right? It's like starting a date with my ex was such a jerk. It's like, okay, great. This date's going to bomb from here on out. It's like, no one wants to go on a second date with that person. So yeah, 100% look for the silver lining in everything. We all got into a career for a reason. We all changed careers for a reason. And we're all trying to move to a better place. Focus on the positives. I got into this career because I liked this thing. I got out of this career because I liked this other thing. Now that I'm doing this other thing, I'm really excited to help your business grow. All right. Any other questions on that? Cool. So how do you write a super simple pitch? Let's get into the nitty-gritty. Merging a background in my previous work with my current work, I help companies accomplish these things. This is the simplest way I could get someone to write a pitch. Past, present, future, just like what we just talked about, right? Past, present, future. With my past merged with my present, I help your company with this future. All right. So for me, if I were to do it, merging a background in marketing and career development, I help schools improve their post-grad placement metrics through career coaching. All right. Or merging a background in marketing and coaching, I help individuals land jobs, depending on who I'm talking to. Now, this might look different for different roles, right? Merging a background in customer service with web development, I help companies create amazing experiences for their users online. You're tying in your customer service role, maybe at a restaurant, maybe in retail, with your web development work in your bootcamp, and you're tying it to this role that wants you to create amazing experiences for users online. Now, we're making an assumption with this last sentence of this is what they want, but of course we would adjust that based on who we're talking to, or we would ask questions in the interview of like, this is what I like to do. Does that align with what you're looking for? You know, things like that. But what I want everyone to do here is just give it a shot. Doesn't need to be perfect. You can always change it in the future. As a matter of fact, you'll probably have a variety of pitches depending on who you're talking to at any given time, right? But try and write your pitch and put it in the chat. Merging a background in your previous work with your current focus, you help companies achieve these ROIs or these outcomes.
Do you want us to write it just like that, but then fill in the role?
Yep, just fill it in. Just fill it in. I'll put it in the chat as well. Whoops. And then I'll go back to the example here, so you can have an example on the page. So I've got the template in the chat, and I've got the example on the screen. Just toss it in chat when you're ready. Anyone struggling? Happy to help.
So this is like what I was saying earlier, where it's like really hard to like put them together. But like I have a background in like financial planning, like analyst, and like my current focus is like software development. But I don't like
What did you like
No.
most about being a financial planner?
I think just like taking about a bunch of information like numbers and kind of putting them together and creating like a presentation out of it. Like it's kind of explaining the story of like my part of the business.
All right, so this might not be exactly what you say, but it's a fun one. Merging a background in financial planning and software development, I help companies organize complex information into stories that help tell the story of the business. All right, it's a little redundant there, but let's go a little bit. Let's try and simplify it a bit. So merging a background in financial planning and software development, I help companies organize complex user information into experiences that engage complex information into online experiences that engage users. Let's go with that. How does that sound to you?
That sounds better.
Cool. And we have another one up here, merging a background in estimating and when you say estimating, what do you mean by that?
So I do commercial construction estimating.
Okay,
So
cool.
I do projects, but all my work's public. So there's like a hard deadline for it. Like it has to be turned in at this time or you completely miss the job.
I love it. So merging a background in construction. You said estimating. Is that, what's the title there? Is it
Yeah, construction estimating.
estimating?
Yeah.
And software development. I help companies launch code on time and in budget. I'm just going to adjust it a little bit to make it a little more coding focused because that's what you're going into.
All right.
So merging a background in construction estimating and software development, I help companies launch code on time and in budget. So if you're talking to any companies that are budget conscious or timeline conscious, they're going to love that. And again, these are starting points. You can use this stuff in your LinkedIn summary, in your resume summary. I wouldn't necessarily just quote this in an interview or a conversation. It might come off a little robotic, but if you need it as a starting place, by all means. When you actually get to the interview and stuff like that, that's where you sort of go into the longer past, present, future. I started my career doing this. I really enjoyed these things about it. It led me into this next phase where now I'm doing this, and I can't wait to help your company with these things. Merging a background in property maintenance with my current focus on software engineering, I help companies diagnose and repair coding bugs and defects. That is on point. That is really good. So bravo on that one. This is what we're going for, everyone, right? And if you're struggling with any of this, hit me up on LinkedIn. I'm happy to go back and forth and help you refine your pitch as well. So when it comes to your pitch, how did you get here? What do you do? And how does it help? Those are the key questions you want to ask yourself. All right, and we'll open it up for questions. Anything you want to go a little bit into more detail on that we covered today? Oh, I'm seeing another one in here. Merging a background in education, insurance, claims operations, customer service, and web development. I help companies develop effortless experiences for their end users and collaborative environments for their internal customers. I love that too, Timothy. Bravo. Really on point. And again, you can put this in your LinkedIn summary or at the top of your resume in that summary page. Okay. And so let's just open it up. What other career-based questions do you want to cover before we wrap up today? Job search questions.
So I'm kind of like totally changing careers from being a guy that worked with his hands and to being on a computer all day.
Mm-hmm.
like, so a lot of my experiences in my stories and stuff are going to come from like kind of like a hands-on maintenance background. Like, I don't, is that something that's all right? Or should I like try to like find in the little bit of experience I do with like computer repair and stuff, like, should I try to have
What
those
kind of
shine through
hands-on
those?
work, just out of curiosity?
So technically I'm a maintenance supervisor. And so I have like a lot of like experience, like just dealing with the like weird social issues and problem issues and like higher end like diagnostics and stuff.
Cool.
And then, but I just don't know if like that's something that is gonna, or if I should like try to focus it more of like the fuse experiences I have in the technical field and have those shine through versus my actual work experience.
Do a bit of both and see how they respond. So
Okay.
what, like I said before, most of your job as an employee is to just get your work done and don't blow everything up.
Okay.
All right. Get along with
Yeah.
everyone, get the work done. Like if
Wow.
every employer had a motto, that should be the motto. Get along with everyone and get the work done. All we're trying to do is get the job done and get home. All right. So, and make money. So focus on that human interaction piece of your previous roles and definitely pull that in. If you manage teams, if you manage drama, if you diffuse situations and you help to keep things on track and on budget and keep things moving forward, all very important team building skills and collaborative skills that you can show off in the interview. Don't shy away from them just because they're not technical. Also bring in anything technical that you have and try and help them. A lot of what we're doing here is helping them connect the dots. If I just told you a bunch of things, I'm like, my name's Martin. I used to do marketing. Now I'm a coach. Want me to do your resume? You'd be like, why are you telling me all these things? Like, this is all very disconnected. But I say marketing, where I did behavioral science, where I was helping people, learn how to manipulate each other, basically. And now I teach you how to manipulate companies. Like, if I want to get really fun with it, like I'm in the world of manipulation in some way, shape, or form, and I can have a lot of fun, or I can be very serious, or I can play around with it. And so this is where you get to let your personality come out a little bit. How do you like to talk about your work? What makes you excited about your previous job? Focus on that. So like if I talk about marketing, I'm telling you, I could go on for hours about how evil it is. And I could talk for hours about how it's manipulating you into being, fat and unhealthy and dying early. Or I could talk about how funny it is and how cool it is and how technology gets wrapped up into it and how, we can actually do a lot of really interesting things to help the world with marketing, right? It all depends on how you want to talk about things and what you want to focus on. With my marketing friends, we might bitch about it. In an interview, I'm going to hail it. But whatever we're doing, we're going to tie it into what our goals are, because all of these things are just different perspectives on the same story. All right. So your story is good, whatever it is. It's just how you tell it. And unfortunately, most job seekers are telling their story from their current emotion, which is fear and insecurity. So I'm trying to help you get away from the fear and insecurity and realize that everyone kind of sucks at their job and most companies are kind of shitty and you're probably good enough to work there. So let's start from that place rather than this company is my dream job. And if they don't hire me, my life is over, which is what I hear from people every day. Like my favorite thing is going from a call with someone who's like, I want a job at Google that would just make my life and it would be the greatest thing on the planet. If I don't get a job there, my life is over. And then the next call is with someone who works at Google going, I hate this place and I can't wait to quit. Please help me get out of here. And I just sit there going, the grass is not always greener on any side. So we're all good. You're good. You're going to get a job because these companies need you because they kind of suck. So go out and try and help them be better because they need it. Have you looked at a website recently? It's buggy. It takes forever to load and it's like filled with errors, right? Go help that company fix those things so their customers aren't so angry all the time. Go help these companies. They need your help. And don't worry that you're flawed because everyone at the company is flawed, right? One of my favorite things when I got into advertising was bringing up like, oh yeah, here's what's going on with Instagram and YouTube. And everyone's like, what are you talking about? I was like, what do you mean what I'm talking about? Isn't this an ad agency? Shouldn't you like know everything about YouTube? I'm telling you about YouTube analytics, me? I'm like, I don't know anything about this stuff. Like, you'll be shocked at how little people know when you actually get into the role, and how much you're actually going to be teaching people who have maybe gotten lazy in their jobs for a few years and aren't aware of the newest things that are going on. So again, reduce the anxiety. The internet's going to make you feel very insufficient. And that's why we keep telling you, these job boards are billboards. They are only 60% of what is actually needed, or only 60% of them is of what's on there is actually necessary for the job. The rest of it is like being a good person and trying to help. And you're already doing that kind of stuff. So keep doing it, keep working at it. If you find yourself struggling, you know, I'm always a click away on LinkedIn. Yeah, I got a podcast and stuff. You can check it all out, but you know, you're on the right track. You've got each other, lean on each other, support each other, right? This group here is probably going to be a group that's going to help you multiple times throughout your career. 5 years from now, you'll help each other get jobs at different places and get paid twice as much. It's going to be great. So put your best foot forward, and good luck, everyone.
Awesome. Thanks, Martin.
You got it.
Yeah, thanks, Martin.
I feel better.
I hope
Thanks.
so.
I really do feel a lot better.
Yeah.
And I'll put this up on YouTube and share you the link as well. So if you want to come back and listen at any point. All right, everyone, enjoy your night.
Wait.
And oh, go ahead.
I'm so sorry to be annoying. I put something in the chat. Can you help me reword?
Oh yeah. We'll end on that. I'll stop the recording and then